very good. I love the way you put everything together. It makes it sense. Love it.
Hello, those who are joining us on YouTube. We'll be starting over again at 1 p.m.
I'll tell you what it's used for.
Yeah, it's not
On architectural drawing.
so like a camera, like a layout.
Yeah,
Yeah, always learn new words.
absolutely. Why not?
Always learn, always learn.
No, good. So the other guy I was saying that, mostly.
Reverend,
Was it Reverend?
there was me, the Reverend, and Reverend Taylor.
Wasn't Reverend that. He was saying
Oh.
that, Jethro
He
was. That means.
Sorry?
But that's like it's years, there's a lot of fans of it.
We're talking in the US.
You asked for a banana, you asked me, I never know.
You're my rabbi.
No, you see the banana. Conversion is way later. Conversion is banana. Later. There was not a fact from now. She says, "I bet your nation, you understand your people, your God, my God, nothing else." Rabbinic conversion changed the way we it's a little bit anachronistic to learn from current halacha how you convert and apply it to Yitro and Moshe and people. That's my personal view.
That's what I.
But we have a lot of different opinions in the baby church, which is wonderful.
You know, it's like almost like saying book of you know,
That's what I'm saying. We have a lot of different opinions here, and this is what makes the baby church very
you
special.
know, it's very good.
Yeah.
Don't you dare me.
Did you tell our repeaters that? Don't tell me.
Do you want me to?
If they don't want me to stay, you should tell our repeaters. I don't know. It's important. You know, it says in remember when I was in elementary school, and my teacher, she was an English teacher, she was probably from English in elementary school. And she used to tell me, Dad, your English is so much. I told her, I don't care. Tell it to my parents. I really value it. I know I didn't want it to work. The girls didn't hear that, right?
It's so funny, it's like, you can connect.
Hello. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Ryan.
Brian, nice to meet you, Ryan.
Nice to meet you.
He's our customer.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Some people you just connect with automatically, and some you just, it just isn't there.
It makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, so you kind of say that's following. Yes, that's wonderful. Is Priya coming?
We all will be here.
Ah,
And my parents also.
really?
I got
Oh,
for this class.
I'm gonna talk about it.
That's their parents, these parents conference.
Oh,
For those watching on YouTube, we'll be getting started momentarily. Just waiting for people to get back from lunch.
All right, we'll call people to come in.
Sounds good to me.
Just one. We
Okay, Okay, welcome to all those waiting online. We'll be getting started momentarily. Lunch is running a little bit late, so we're just waiting for people to get back.
You all become good.
Okay, for those joining us online, you can see the numbers are increasing. We're just waiting for people to get back from lunch, and then we will begin. Feel free to finish doing things. I assume we'll get started somewhere within the next few minutes. Good to hear.
I need Shirley. I'm trying to figure this out.
Oh, pleasure to meet you in person.
You on Zoom.
Yes, we've met online.
Online.
Pleasure to meet you in person.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that series because it's learning something.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. It's good.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's really been a lot of fun. Alrighty, so all those who are with us online, hang tight. We'll be starting momentarily. Just waiting for everyone to get back from lunch.
You guys just see your classic Q&A at the beginning instead of the.
There we go. Oh, there are more people in line than in the room right now. So
Well, they may be right.
okay, people are coming in, and we'll start in just a minute.
How's your learning?
Okay.
Already.
My wife, Fran.
He's the banker.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's 1:05, so let's get started. Thank you all so much for joining us for Beit Midrash Zikron Dov's annual Tanach in a Day program. Tanach in a Day is sponsored by Serena and David Kushitsky in memory of Riva Kushitsky. May Neshama benefit from our community's learning. This class in particular is sponsored by the Goldman family, Lilu Nishmas Harav Hagaon Hadayam Achanoch Ben Yisrael HaKohen Zatzal, on the occasion of his Shloshim, as well as by Mitch Morgenstern in memory of Beverly Sklar, Belka Bas Avram Shmuel, and Chana Feigl Zikrona Livracha. May her neshama have an aliyah. So for this year, we're going to need three things. Hopefully, we all have in front of us. Number one is a Tanach. We all have a Tanach. Wonderful. Those who don't have a Tanach, we need a Tanach. Number one. Number two, the source packets, and number three, a Beit Midrash Zikron Dov bookmark. For those watching at home who do not have the zechus of having a Beit Midrash Zikron Dov bookmark yet, you can get one at a future event of ours. Just grab any bookmark of your choice. All right. I hope everyone had a great lunch. I was saying we really lost the opportunity for having Chinese food for lunch today, but the pizza was plenty oily for Hanukkah, so we all had a good time either way. Sure, I was sick yesterday, so it was a little Wednesday afternoon for village people. I was not sick at the time when I was giving my class yesterday, but when I got home, I was hacking away, and it was bad. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about Sefer Yehoshua, particularly the beginning of the book of Joshua, which follows directly from the Chumash. The benefits of taking off my mask is actually that now I can actually put on my glasses and actually see everyone. So there was little difference between looking at my glasses covered in the fog from the mask and not having my glasses on at all. But now I can see all of your faces, so this is good for everyone. So for Tanakh, we're going to take a look at a few different parts. Firstly, open to the beginning of the book of Joshua, Sefer Yoshua. It's on page 519 in the Art Scroll Tanakh. And for those who have the little green slip, just put it in there. We're going to be going back and forth from there. That's on page 518, 519. And put the bookmark in page 475, 474, 475. That's a part in the book of Deuteronomy, which we're going to go to also for purposes of compare-contrast. And we're going to get started back in the book of Joshua. So once the bookmark's in, for ease of access, we can get started with the beginning of the book of Joshua. Now, this takes place immediately after the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe passed away. We immediately enter into the land and begin with the long-awaited conquest that we're going to. So this is starting with the very first verse in the book of Joshua, page 519 in the English. It happened after the death of Moses, servant of Hashem. Hashem said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' attendant, saying, Moses, my servant, has died. Now arise, cross the Jordan with your entire people to the land that I give to the children of Israel. It's finally time for us to enter the land and to conquer it. We need to do battle. We need to be strong. We need to be courageous. There are enemies that are waiting, and we are going to need to be strong. Now, who are the people that are waiting in this land, and how are we supposed to face them? So that answer lies in the book of Deuteronomy, Sefer Devarim, where it outlines who these are and what exactly is so important here. So if we go to where we put the bookmark, page 475 in the book of Devarim, chapter 20 really goes through this in detail. And this is going to really set up how these interactions happen and also set up the prime question that we face in this class right now. So chapter 20, verse 1 goes as follows. When you go out to battle against your enemy, those who are waiting for you in the land, and you see the horse and chariot, people more numerous and greater than you shall not fear them, for Hashem is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. It shall be that when you draw near to the war, the Kohen shall approach and speak to the people. And he will say, Hear, O Israel, you are coming near to the battle against your enemies. Let your heart not be faint. Do not be afraid. Do not panic. Do not be broken before them. For Hashem, your God, is the one who goes with you to fight for you with your enemies to save you. Great. We have Hashem on our side. We're going to go in. We're ready. We will not be afraid. We will be, quite literally in this case, soldiers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, soldiers of the Blessed Holy One in battle. And when we go there are particular enemies that are waiting. So then the officers shall speak, this is verse 5, so the officers shall speak to the people and say, who is the man who built a new house, who has not inaugurated it? Let them return to their house, lest he die in a war and another man will inaugurate it. Who is the man who planted a vineyard and not redeemed it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in war and another man redeem it. Who is the man who betroths the woman and not married her, who's engaged? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in a war and another man will marry her. So these are all the exceptions to the rule. And then they continue speaking, who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house. Let him not melt the heart of his fellows like his heart. When the officers have finished speaking to the people, the leaders of the legions shall take command at the head of the people. So we've set ourselves up. We have a strong, not only physically, but strong-hearted army as well, ready to go in and to make good on taking this land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. When you draw near to one of these cities and wage war against it, you will first call out for peace. This is going to be important moving forward. And it shall be that if it responds to you in peace and opens its gate for you, the people found within it shall be a tribute to you, and they shall serve you. We'll all be on good terms. Everything will be great moving forward. But if it does not make peace with you, but makes war with you, you shall besiege it. Hashem will deliver it into your hand, and you will smite all its males by the blade of the sword. Only the women, the small children, the animals, and everything in the city may you plunder for yourselves. You shall eat the booty of your enemies, which Hashem, your God, gave you. So this is now getting into the actual fighting. What happens if they don't accept peace? We should all obviously give peace a chance. If you don't want to, so then we have to actually fight. And that's when things get a little complicated. Exactly. So shall you do all the cities, even those that are very distant from you, which are not the cities of these nations. Meaning we have the specific 7 nations, which Rashina went through each of them, all the ites at the end, and those we specifically have to fight. And he says, from the cities of these people that Hashem your God gives you as inheritance. This is going on to the next page, 477. All that Hashem gives you as inheritance, you shall not allow any person to live. Meaning of these specific ones, who are specifically here, and we are specifically told about, that's when the battle is all out. Rather, you shall utterly destroy them. The Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. So as Hashem your God has commanded you, so that they will not teach you to act according to their abominations that they perform. So these people are incredibly dangerous for us, not only physically, but as spiritual threats as well. And we must do everything we can in order to do this. And as a result of that, we have this incredibly strong command here that none of their souls shall survive. No one will be left alive of these. And so this is the context that we're in when we enter the land back under Yehushua's leadership and must face these enemies. So what does this actually look like? And for that, we're going to get further context from the Rambam. So if we now open our source sheets, this is on page 17.
Where is it?
So the source sheets are all in the back of the room if anyone does not have. This is source 17. And the Rambam, Maimonides, gives us context for how exactly this should look. This is source number 2 on the page. He says a king should not wage other wars before Milchemet Mitzvah. Milchemet Mitzvah is a war that is divinely commanded, a holy war in the truest sense of the word. This is as opposed to a Milchemet Rishut, which is an optional war. It's a war you can fight, maybe even should fight, but is not at a divine behest. So he says, what's considered Milchemet Mitzvah? The war against these 7 nations that occupied Eretz Yisrael, and the war against Amalek. And we have a command to wipe out Amalek, which is a subject of another shir, not this one, but we'll see there is relevance to it. These are all considered.
They also have an eye at the end.
Exactly, the Amalekites. So these are all things that are considered an obligatory war that we need to fight. The war Yehoshua is getting ready to fight is exactly one of these. And I apologize, by the way, for interrupting. The shir started a little bit late. So if comments can be held to the end, I will be right outside right after the share to discuss.
Thank you.
Of course. I apologize for interrupting you so much, though, in that. I should have specified that beforehand.
I'm
So,
sorry.
no, I'm the one who's sorry. I'm even learning to pronounce sorry like a Canadian. That's how you know I've been here for over a
We
year.
apologize so much for looking at the end of this year.
Exactly. So I'm sorry for interrupting my own shir for all of these apologies. There we go. So, continuing on in the Rambam, we have this War of the Seven Nations. This is now source number 3. Rambam says it is a positive commandment to annihilate the 7 nations who dwell in Eretz Israel. As Deuteronomy states, is what we just read, you shall utterly destroy them. Anyone who chances upon one of them and does not kill them even violates a negative command, which states, do not allow one of their souls to live. The memory of them needs to be obliterated.
Hold on.
This is true for Amalekite, right? It's shocking, really, that we have this. And the question is,
Why?
what do we do with this? It's a big question. And I was actually, when I was talking with you about this, I said, Steve, don't give this shir. It's gonna be too much. But we're talking about Jews and non-Jews in Tanach on December 25th, so we might as well face this. These are part of our tradition, and we have this incredible idea here when we're facing this. So how do we actually respond to this? So the Rambam goes into more on this. He says war. This is source number 4 on page 18 now. He says war, neither a milchemet reshut nor a milchemet mitzvah, neither an optional one or an obligatory one, should be waged against anyone until they are offered the opportunity of peace. We also just saw that in Deuteronomy. You offer them peace first. Now the issue is, it sounds there like the 7 nations are not included in that. It sounds like those we have a real obligation to. So what do we actually do? How do we consider this? So first we need to see what it means to accept peace. Continuing on in the Rambam, so he says, if the enemy accepts an offer of peace and commits itself to fulfillment of the 7 mitzvot, these are the 7 commandments given to the children of Noah. Those commandments are prohibitions against blasphemy, idolatry, sexual impropriety, murder, theft, eating the limb off a live animal, and a positive command to establish courts. If all 7 of these things are done, then these are considered B'nai Noah. They are considered holy, righteous people, and as a result of that, they would not be included in the people that we need to fight against in war. To the contrary, they would be almost like Ger Toshavim. They would be included within an extension of people who are able to live with us, who we are able to form a society with in good conscience. So that's what we need to do. We have this idea of peace. And it's only, says the Rambam in the next source, the English of which is on page 19, it is only if they do not accept a peaceful settlement. If you do everything in your power to offer peace, and that means giving it a real fair shot, saying and being true to ourselves that we do not want violence, we do not want bloodshed, this land is ours, and we have a claim on it that is divinely given to us. But we do not want this to be a cause of bloodshed. We can all live together on Hashem's side. And if you do everything in your power to do that, and they still refuse to do that, then and only then do you wage war. Also, if they agree, but they don't want to become B'nai Noah. If they say, we're gonna accept this peace, but you can't stop us from having a society where we kill each other in the streets, or where theft from a certain class of people is legal, or we don't want to establish courts that are honest. They do any of those, then we still have to. And interestingly, very interestingly, the Rambam says that this is actually included with the 7 nations. The above applies to a Milchemet Reshut thought in other nations. He says, if either of the 7 nations or Amalek refuse to accept peace, not one of them shall be left alive. Meaning we have this idea that you only kill the men for some. For the 7 nations we saw before who are so abominable, every member of them is part of this culture and part of perpetuating that. However, note his language. If they don't accept peace, meaning even the 7 nations who we are commanded to go against, even Amalek, the worst of all of them, who did such unspeakable tragedies to us that there was a mitzvah to erase their memory, blot it out entirely. If they accept the 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noah, And if they say we agree to peace, then there is peace. And you do not have to wage this war. Peace is something that is so strong that comes into this. And when Yehoshua was prepared to go in and to offer that if we needed to. And the Kesef Mishnah here, the last source on the page, on page 19, explains why this is. He's using this in relation to Amalek, but also within the 7 nations. For if they accept upon themselves the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, they are no longer considered as belonging to these categories of the seven nations or Amalek.
Wow.
Rather, they're like any upright Gentile. They're like a b'nei Noach kasher. Why is that? So Rav Hirsch explains, this is because it's all in that cultural identification. When you identify with these groups, when you go out of your way to perpetuate horrible things, to perpetuate these abominable acts, then you are within them. But if I say, I do not identify with this, I don't want to do that. I rescind this name. I throw this name off of me. I want to just be a normal Ben Noach, part of this universal push. And I'm going to establish these courts. I'm not going to, rip a limb off a live animal. I'll be a good person. I won't kill. I won't steal. Then you are not considered to actually belong to one of these groups anymore. And you're considered a B'nai Noach like anyone else, and you can live amongst the Jews in the society that we are setting up.
A no-name brand.
Sorry?
A no-name brand.
Exactly. Though you have your own name within that, though. It's this you're disidentifying from this particular group.
So you've got a clean slate.
Yeah. And so then we have this exact group here, and then you're part of this broader mission in the world, part of this extended family working under HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we go back to Sefer Yehoshua now, we'll actually see that. If we go to chapter 2, page 519, the bottom, in the Tanach, we actually see this acting up. The first thing Joshua does is he sends spies into the land, and they go in, and they meet a woman. And I'm just going through this outside to save time. Otherwise, we'd be doing a closer read of this. And this woman wants to help them. She says, I've heard of your God. I've heard of you. I know what this is. I want to help. And what do? They give her a means to spare her. They say, take this, put it out. We'll know who you are. And you will be able to join. You'll be able to be part of us. Now, interestingly, as far as I know, at least, she does not become Jewish. And these people don't have to become Jewish. They can be themselves. As long as we are all on the same broader page, moving in the same direction. Now, how they are compared to us on a metaphysical level will actually be seen in my second shir of the day in just about an hour and a half. So that'll be complementary to this. When we'll get the other side of the coin, we'll look at the spiritual relationship here. But when it comes to our physical living together, we are able to all be here together. Obviously, the Jews will have certain roles, certain responsibilities within that. But even those that we are commanded to otherwise wipe out, we need to understand what that is there for and how we get there. Peace is the goal, not war. We want rectification, not chaos. And in order to do that, we will do everything in our power to forge that peace, to move towards it, and to strive to be, if I may quote from the country of my birth, one people under God. And so we'll have all of this opportunity to be moral together, moving in the same direction, holy people, ethical monotheists. You can pick whatever term you would like to use there, but that is what the goal is. All coming together in that shared mission towards that shared end point. And if we are able to, then we can all come together and all live under that society, each of us doing our own parts to help to make Israel our own. Once again, bring the Beis HaMikdash back, bring Mashiach B'meherav Yameinu in a society where Jews and non-Jews can all worship Hashem together. I apologize, this year was a little bit rushed due to the lack of time, but I do want to leave time for questions. There's off more than a few people raising their hands throughout. Yes?
Can I just clarify the 6 nations that we're supposed to wipe out? Do they have that option to 7 nations?
Yeah, they had the option to accept peace. Yeah, the Kesef Mishnah makes that clear. If they accept peace and become B'nai Noach, then you do not have to kill them anymore. They have 100% have that option. You offer them peace just like everyone else. Yes.
I have two questions. This is a model that's presented from Yeshua's entry into Israel. What about Kutz Eretz Israel? Outside of Eretz Israel, that's the first question. The second question is, if I understand what slaughter properly, even if I understand current slaughter properly, current slaughter in a general sense would not even satisfy the requirement not to take blood from a live animal the way slaughter is done in most places today. Perhaps in the Muslim community, some Muslim communities, but I'm virtually certain in most other communities not. So those are my two questions.
Right. So for the first question, in Chutz La'aretz, it would be considered a Milchemet Reshut just by definition. Milchemet mitzvahs are within Eretz Yisrael. The question about slaughter in general is a much broader question that's not really within the scope of this particular shir, but I'm happy to discuss it afterwards. Yes.
Given if I understood you correctly, that you have these ites, the 7 ites, and if they keep on in their old ways, you have an obligation to kill them. But if they change culturally and not identify with that, you can have peace with them. So I'm going to ask you the unfair political question. What about people who say, we are the descendants of the Canaanites, and we identify with them, and we are the original inhabitants, so they are now identifying culturally with that group. Therefore, is it an obligation to eradicate them?
That is a question for someone with a wider beard than mine.
He said, go on. Go on.
Right.
But these people are saying it openly. They're saying they disagree with her.
This is a much bigger question than we have time for right now, but I acknowledge it's a very, very good question and one that will take more than the 3 minutes that are still on the clock to be able to answer.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any closing questions, comments, concerns? All right, so I will be outside after this year manning the door. If anyone has any follow-up they would like to have on that. We have 3 minutes to stretch, and then we will have the next year of the day momentarily. Oh, good question. Yeah, I think you're right. I was very jumbled with the time and how to figure out the next year, but I think you're right. Yeah.
As they say in Yiddish, que ça change, que c'est la même chose. And you're American, so you may not have understood, but everything you said could be taken off the
Yeah.
I tell you, I wish I had you all the time.
I don't know, should we be encouraged or should we just?
Don't you have you all the time?
Right. Yeah. Real life is it's complicated when we have this, when we face all of these tragedies and all of these things that we see. I think when we understand what the end goal is and push towards that, even if we understand there are battles that have to be fought. So.
When you say art of peace,
right. Right. There's a time for peace. There's a time for war. We have that in so we understand that there's a time for that time.
Then a song, yes.
Didn't she marry? Didn't she become Jewish? Yeah, someone just mentioned that to me. Yes, I was Caleb. I was completely. I was very flustered trying to figure out the time and how to get everything.
Is this yours?
What? I'm doing now. Not everything is mine, but I'm giving the 130 shares.
Okay, you gave the first.
I gave the first, and I'm giving now. Yeah. We'll leave questions also.
You have your email somewhere on here?
Yeah, on the sources. You'll open the sources. All right, we should start. We should begin. All right, everyone. There's a lot of learning going on, and it needs some schmoozing in between.
It's good.
It is good. It is good.
It means you gave us thought-provoking ideas.
I'm glad. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rabbi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I see some new faces that were not here for my first class. So I will let me introduce myself again. My name is Idan Rakovsky. I'm an Avrech here in the Beit Midrash and the rabbinic assistant, Sha'arei Tefillah congregation, and originally from Israel, Kibbutz Masuot Yitzchak. My parents are also here, and my dear wife is here, so that's why I'm a little bit nervous for this class. No, I'm kidding. It's all good. Originally from Kibbutz Masuot Yitzchak, not expecting, as I said earlier today, anyone to know where Kibbutz Masuot Yitzchak is. It's a very, very small place around Ashkelon and Ashdod. It's a kibbutz, as you know it, with the farmers and with the cows, the refet, and the chickens and everything. But this is for a different discussion. My dear wife Priel sits there on the back, and we're here in Shlichut from Israel, and we love to learn and teach along with the wonderful Jewish community here in Toronto. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you very much for coming today. Tanach in a Day, the entire event is dedicated by Serena and David Kashitsky in memory of Riva Kashitsky, Zichra Livracha. May her neshama have an aliyah. And this year, the wolf, the lamb, Russia, and Ukraine, is dedicated by the Zobin family in memory of Zina's father, Yaakov Moshe ben Yitzchak Tzvi Cohen, Zichro Livracha, may his neshama have an aliyah. Now look, it's not a simple shir for me to give.
No.
It's not a simple shir for me to give. I'll be honest. I prepared this shir, and I'm sorry, Rabbi Cherchiner, to give to tell that to everyone. I haven't prepared this shir last week. I haven't even prepared it a month ago. Not even 6 months ago. I prepared this year around May 2022. It's around 6 months ago.
Wow.
And I was sure that I will not need, no chance that I will give this year at December 2022. I'm shocked that I'm giving this year here again. And that just means that this year is important, and the message from this year is very relevant and very important. And I will start with the tefillah, with a prayer that this year will also bring some shalom, some peace to the world, to the Jewish people, to the non-Jews as well. You know that before we start, just to say, the word shalom in Hebrew is such a beautiful word. You think about it, such a beautiful word. Unfortunately, when we translate it into peace, it doesn't have the same feeling. It doesn't have the same feeling as shalom. And we hope for shalom, a real true shalom, as we say in Shabbat. We bless each other, Shabbat shalom, right? Not good Shabbos. We say Shabbat shalom, and we ask for shalom for ourselves, for the Jewish people, for the entire world. I want to learn today Isaiah 11, Yeshayahu Yud Aleph. That's a very famous chapter, maybe one of the most famous chapters in the Nevi'im, the prophets. A chapter that talks about peace, about shalom, about Jews and non-Jews, about humanity for the days to come. Before I do that, before I dive into the psukim themselves, I want to say that in general, when we learn prophecy, and the first shir on a Nevuah shir, Nevi'im Achronim, last Nevi'im in this day, there are going to be more. If Stephen will talk about Yechezkel as well. When we learn about Nevi'im, when we learn about prophecy, we should ask ourselves, how do we learn prophecy? How do we learn a prophecy? It's very difficult. The most complicated, the most challenging books to learn Tanach, to learn from the Tanakh, are actually those Nevi'im books, Yeshayahu and Yechezkel and Yirmiyahu. There's more. I know Rabbi Judin will say Eiyov as well, one of the very most difficult books, I agree. But learning those Nevi'im Achronim, those last Nevi'im, not the first one with the stories like Yeshayahu and Shoftim and Shmuel, but talking about Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yechezkel, and so on, it's very complicated. Very complicated, and we need to ask ourselves, how do we learn it? So I'll tell you that everything that I have is not from me. I learned from other teachers, great rabbis, great people. And in Mongol, I learned from my wife. And Priel, I'm sorry to put you in that situation, but Priel teaches Yeshayahu in Ulpanat Orot. She teaches Yeshayahu, the book, in the girls' high school. And I talked to her. I asked her, like, Priel, how do you teach Nevuah? How do you talk about it? How do you what's the way? What are the tools to teach students and high schoolers? And she told me the first thing we should do is understand that maybe we should not read the Nevuah in the order it is written. We'll read it in the order, don't worry. But sometimes we should try to split, to categorize, I would say, the verses, the psukim, into different groups. So that's what we will do here today. We know, before we read the psukim, I will say, Chazal told us that a nevuah that was written is a nevuah shenitna ledorot. It's a prophecy that was given for all generations, for eternity. That's the reason it was written. And when we look and we read every chapter of nevuah in Tanach, we should first ask ourselves, what do I learn from it in my life? What do I see from it? Where do I find myself? What is the mirror inside those verses, among those words, that I can find myself and see myself reflected through it? And here it's very easy. Very easy, and we'll explain in a minute why it is very easy here. So let's read the nevuah. I'll read it in English, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of the words in English. English is not my first language, but you can follow with the Hebrew one, and if that will make more sense for you. So I'm starting at reading Isaiah 11, Yeshayahu Yud Aleph, verse 1 to 9. Verse 1 to 9. Yeah. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Ishai, and a branch shall grow out of its roots, his roots. And the spirit of Hashem shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Hashem. And his delight shall be in the fear of Hashem, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither decide after the hearing of the ears. But with justice shall he judge the poor, and decide the equity of the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And justice shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness girdle of his reins. The wolf, one of the most famous verses in Tanakh, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion, and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. Verse 7. And the cow and the bear shall feed. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the sucking child play on the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hands on the viper's nest. The last verse says, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all of my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Hashem as the waters covers the sea. This is a beautiful, beautiful prophecy.
It's beautiful.
Times of the Mashiach. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking here about the Mashiach. We're talking here about the days to come. Prophet Isaiah, Yeshayahu, Navi describes the day we all pray and wish will come. Days of peace, of shalom. Day where the lamb and the wolf will be able to live along together. Where the wolf will not eat the lamb, and the lamb will not be terrified from living along with the wolf. And those days, there will be peace around the earth. And this all should come from this Mashiach, from this Messiah that comes forth as the rod out of the stem of Ishai. Just to explain, what is that rod out of the stem of Ishai? What is the phrase you showed? Brought out, there is a picture at the bottom of our sources. You see this rod, right, that comes out of the stem. The house of David, Beit David, is that's a wood, that's a tree that was cut. It was cut, was destroyed. Nothing can grow out of it. But the Nevuah, the Navi tells us, no, you know what will happen? There is this rod that will come out, this little plant that will grow out of this dry wood. And even if you think the tree is dead, he's not dead forever. This tree will have some existence in the world to come. And this small little plant can grow out of it. And this plant will grow and become a huge, amazing, fruitful tree that will expand and will share the peace and the shalom in the world. Now, in order to understand this shir and what I want to learn from that about Russia and Ukraine, the Russia and Ukraine crisis, in order to do that, we need, first of all, to understand how we learn the text here. So the text is pretty obvious. I would assume most of us can understand most of the words here, even if we don't understand the parable so much. But the theme, as we said, right, the theme is the Mashiach, the theme is the days to come. I want to offer a different way of understanding this source, different way of understanding this nevuah that will open us a window of understanding a little bit better what we should hope and pray for in those days. In order to do that, as I told you, when we learn nevuah,
we want to categorize the different verses into different groups. So let's start. Let's do that together. If you have a pencil, it will be even easier. I have my pen, so for me it's very easy. I'll tell you how I want to split those verses into what groups. So the first group, I think, would be verse 2, 3, and 5. Verse 2, 3, and 5, I call them the first group. This group of verses describe the simple question of who is the Mashiach. Who is the Mashiach? So for example, the Mashiach is someone that has spirit, right? He has the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of Hashem, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge, for example, right? We talk about him, we talk about his skills, we talk about his characteristics, we talk about what kind of a leader he's supposed to be, right? What is his characters? What are we looking when we talk about the ideal leader in Judaism? Who is the Messiah? Who will be the Mashiach that will help the Jewish people in the days to come? Then I think the prophet gives us this menu, this list of skills that we should understand that our leader should go and walk accordingly, right? And look at those. What he's supposed to have. He's supposed to have 4 times in verse 2, 4 times we have the word spirit, ruach in Hebrew. 4 times, Ruach Hashem, Spirit of Hashem, Spirit of Wisdom, Ruach Chokhmah. We have the Spirit of Counsel and Might, Ruach Etzah Ugvura, and Ruach Dat Irat Hashem, Spirit of Knowledge of the Fear of Hashem. I don't think there are 4 different types of Ruach. I don't think the Navi here gives us 4 different kinds of spirit. I think the first spirit, Ruach Hashem, is the title, Spirit of Hashem. And the Navi tells us, you know what is the Spirit of Hashem? You know what kind of a spirit I want into this Jewish leader? I want that this spirit would come to expression in those 3. You will be wise, you will be smart, you will have this spirit of wisdom, but it will also be might. You'll be mighty. Yeah, our leader is also mighty. He's also someone that has no fear, that had no sense of fear. But he's also a person of emunah, of belief, also of the spirit of knowledge of Hashem. We have this triangle, 3 pieces of spirit, which they all combine together into one character, one spirit of Hashem, which is the ideal leader, which we call the Mashiach. That for the first group. I think the second group of verses would be verse 1 and verse 4. I think verse 1 and verse 4 tell us, first of all, not about who you are, the Mashiach, but tells us, where do you come from and what will you do? It's different questions. When we understand where he comes from, we can understand what he will do. We don't care now in this group about the skills, the characteristics, what kind of I would say, character he would be, or what is his strength, but rather, what is your plan? What is your plan? Where do you come from? What will you do? So where he comes from, we know, right? He shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Ishai, and the branch will grow out of his roots. So we know where he comes from. He comes from the house of Ishai, which is the house of King David, which is the rooted family of kings, of kingdom, of Judaism. And then what do we have also in verse 4? We have what he will do. And take a look. Verse 4 says amazing. If I would ask any of you, what do you think the Mashiach would do? What do you think is the role of the Mashiach? If you give me one thing that the Mashiach would do, I would assume, just like in many, many, many generations in Judaism, we were sure that the Mashiach is first and foremost, what? A general. A general. Think about Bar Kokhba, for example. The many people thought it would be the Mashiach. We talk about the times of Hanukkah and so on. So the leader, according to the prophecy, is not a soldier. Again, and I served in the army, I wasn't a combat soldier, but the real soldier or the real leader is not a soldier, not necessarily a soldier. He's a different type. His role is different. Take a look. Verse 4. So what will he do, this leader, this Mashiach? But with justice shall he judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. Folks, he's not a general in the army. The Mashiach is a judge. He's someone that lives and sits in court. He's not wearing his belt with his sword or with his gun and go and fight. He also does that maybe according to the Rambam and so on. We might say that he also had this character. But first and foremost, Navi Shayahu tells us, you know who the Mashiach is? He is someone, he's a judge. That's who he is. He judges people accordingly. And take a look. I think that he says even more than that. You know how we know he's not this soldier, this general that goes on the combat and go and fight? Because take a look. the rod of his mouth. He should smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. What is the rod of the mouth? What is the rod of the mouth? That's not a weapon. Smite the earth. I would assume he's with the rod, like Moshe Rabbeinu, taking the rod, the stick, and hitting the rock so water can go out, can flow out of it. What do we talk about when the Yeshayahu tells us, you know what he will smite the earth with? He will smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. More than that, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked? With the breath of his lips? Folks, this is very Jewish.
Just talk to me.
It is very, very, very Jewish. And now we're in Hanukkah. Think about it for a moment. In Hanukkah, we celebrate our victory, the few against the many, right? The Jews against the Greeks. Think about it for a moment. How do Jews celebrate this victory? We don't build those huge marble monuments, right? It's not like you're walking in the street of Yerushalayim and you see like you're walking on the Capitol Hill in Washington and you see this huge statue of Moshe Rabbeinu or this huge statue of Yehuda Maccabi or this huge marble statue of Matityahu. That's not what Jews do. That's not how we celebrate our victories. Rather, what is the most Jewish way to celebrate miracles? We light